I am an entrepreneur and I'm a high performance coach. I've been an entrepreneur, actually a serial entrepreneur. I started years ago as in sales, excelled in sales, became a sales trainer, and then had a personal development franchise, and then eventually wanted to create something in the online space so I could have more time with my children. So I went on to create an online magazine that led me to create an event production company and then to the coaching. My first love is to really help people blast through all their self-limiting beliefs and step into what they truly want. And so today I'm going to focus primarily on that because as we are getting into the last quarter of the year, I am finding more and more people that are getting a little bit uncomfortable with the fact that they may not be realizing that which they intentionally set out to achieve early on. And there's a reason for that. So we're going to go through some steps today to kind of address that and figure out what we can do so that we can get ourselves on track and start to achieve that which we say we want. First, I think it's important to understand that you are the creator of your life. And so you have this power and the beautiful gift as a human of free will. And we have a mind that's like a compass. We get to point it in whichever direction we choose. And so when we understand this, then we can decide to become much more deliberate in where we're going to choose to place our focus. So that now we can look at, okay, if I want to create this, I'm going to start focusing on that. But what often happens is little things start to crop up for us and it starts to take us off track. Most of the time, it's a little bit of fear. Most of the time, it's some kind of thought, belief, or pattern that has been embedded into us early on that we may not even be aware of it because we're often unconsciously allowing our past to truly dictate our future. And we may cognitively understand this. What I find so often is people know this. They can say it, they understand it, but yet for some reason they can't quite figure out, okay, wait, I get it. But how do I get that old limiting belief out of the driver's seat? And how do I actually push myself forward? I'm doing all the things, I'm setting the intentions, I'm doing the I am statements, I've got the vision board, but why is it that I'm not actually achieving that which I say I want? Well, we have to understand what is in the way, and then we have to kind of switch that so that we can start to create these new neural pathways so we can start to get ourselves on track towards that which we want. And there's a few steps that are going to help you do that. You have to be able to, and I'm sure if you know anything about law of attraction, and there are universal laws that are governing our world. Law of attraction states that you have to be an attraction, you have to attract, right? You have to be a vibrational match to that of what you want. You have to get into the frequency of what you want. But how do you actually do that? It's one thing to say, okay, I want to be a vibrational match and, I'm going to get into that frequency. Great. But how do we actually do that? So today we're going to go through a few steps and I'm going to give you a couple of examples. I like to give examples because I think they paint a clearer picture. And I think it allows us to understand a little bit more on a deeper level so that we can relate to things so that we can start to apply it in our own life. And so the first step in order to truly start to manifest what you want and start to realize those intentions is that you have to pay attention to the patterns of behavior because those are going to be huge indicators as to who's actually running the show for you. Like who is actually sitting in that driver's seat. And so recently in one of my group coaching programs, we started talking all about our patterns of behavior and taking a look at what might be coming up for us, but maybe disguised in a different person, maybe disguised in a different scenario, maybe disguised in a different environment, but yet it's really at the core of it the same actual issue that we're dealing with. And I like to use the word issue instead of problem because I think issue carries a little bit less weight and I think it's a little bit easier for us to get our head wrapped around it. I think sometimes when we look at things as problems, they carry so much weight that it's harder to get through those. So I'm very conscious of the words that I use because words have incredible power. So I use the word issue as opposed to using the word problems because again, it carries less weight. It makes it a little bit easier for us to look at it and go, it's an issue. Okay, how am I going to deal with this? So when we were going through these patterns, we started to take a look at, okay, what's cropping up and where might I see the same things happening over and over again? And in one of my most recent group coaching programs, we were working on these patterns. And I asked one of the women if I could share this. I'm obviously not going to share her name, but it was very clear that she was working on the issue of money and of value. And so what this looked like for her was that she was having issues with some of her clients taking absolutely forever to pay. And she felt like every time she would send the invoice out to them, she already knew it, that this client, oh my gosh, she was going to have to follow up with them. And then she was going to have to call them. Then she was going to have to send a second invoice and sometimes a third invoice. And then she never charged those on those invoices additional fees. Like most companies will say, look, if you don't pay within 30 days, we're going to add on additional fees. But she didn't do that. And so that was a clue or a key indicator, as well as having to continually follow up. She felt like she was always following up on these. So then we took a look at that and we thought, okay, well, where else is this maybe showing up in your life? And do you see any other pattern of behavior here that's starting to come about and show up for you or play out more often? And so she started realizing that, oh my gosh, you're right. Whenever I am getting ready to send an invoice, I take forever to do it. I take forever to actually create the invoice or give it to my bookkeeper to create it. And I'm not sending invoices on time. Like I send them when I know, oh my gosh, I really need this to be due. And then I feel like I'm in this tailspin. So she's constantly putting off what her good is. Every time she gets a new client she's so excited about, she hesitates before she sends her contract over. She takes a look at it and she goes, gosh, I'm not sure. And she starts to come from the position of, wow, overthinking the dollars that she's charging. So if we take a look at this, we start to realize, okay, there's clearly an issue here with her value, with her valuing what she actually brings to the table, with her valuing her own self and being worthy enough to charge what she knows her worth or her value is in the marketplace, what she is offering. So she had a real disconnect between what she said she wanted, building a successful business, charging her value, knowing what it was and what she actually had to bring to the table, and then actually getting that money in. And it wasn't working for her. So she had to start thinking in terms of, gosh, how can I change this around? How can I actually now identify these patterns of behavior and where else do they show up? And that is absolutely key. It's one of the most important things that you can do. And it's so powerful by first taking a look at what may be going on. What are those patterns of behavior? What are the limiting beliefs? And what are kind of the stories that are behind those? What are you telling yourself? And you must take personal inventory. This is so key. You have to be able to look at those items that keep flaring up for you, even though they may be disguised in someone else. So it could be, in her case, it could be a new client. It could be not wanting to send the contract. It could be not knowing what her pricing should be. Instead, she was thinking in terms of what would they be willing to pay, or are they going to come back to me and say, wow, this is a lot. And she was starting to see things as people coming back to her. Well, this is how she put it. I feel like people, let me read this. She wrote down, I feel like I'm getting clients that fire back to me, the word there, fire back to me, my invoices, asking me to go through and justify everything that I'm charging for. And when I read it, I saw the exact same email. When I read it, I looked at it like, they're just simply asking you to be a little bit more detailed on what your charges are. So again, she saw it as someone firing it back to her and asking her to justify. So this is a huge issue with value, self-worth, value, money issues as well. But it's taking a look at that and understanding that it's going to be so incredibly key. Because once you discover what your unconscious beliefs are by taking a look at these patterns, they stop becoming unconscious. Now you're conscious of them. And when you are conscious of them, then you can start to go forth and make changes. Such a powerful exercise to really pay attention to what those patterns are, because oftentimes they are disguised in the Bible it says disguised in sheep's clothing. Oftentimes they are disguised in different individuals, different circumstances, different places, but it's at the core the exact same issue. And so you want to pay attention to that. That's going to be so key to starting to uncover what might be keeping you from getting into vibrational alignment with that which you want, so that you can actually start to manifest it. So first, you have to then pay attention to these patterns, but then decide now, once you're conscious of it, okay, what thoughts and behaviors do I need in order to be aligned with my desired outcome? Well, in her case, clearly it was believing in her value and trusting that what she had was of value, trusting that she herself did have the knowledge, the expertise, and could charge what she wanted to charge. And then once she could do that, she can then take a look at it and say, okay, now that I can choose to say, this was the issue, I'm going to change that now because it's no longer serving me. But part of changing that is understanding, where did that come from? Where was that root cause? And when she started looking at things in her childhood, it was very clear to her that so often her family devalued what they were doing. Her mom would often say, oh, it's not really, worth it. I don't know if I can do that. And she was constantly saying, it sounds like a great idea, but I don't know. I don't think I can do that. I didn't go to school. It was all these limiting beliefs. Now, it wasn't she saying it to herself, nor was it her parents saying it to her, but she grew up in an environment where she heard that so frequently that all of a sudden it became clear for her that she started to adapt that as part of her own identity. So you have to be aware of what is going on here. Then you can start to change it. So she now is looking at things and saying, okay, what if I really did value what I was doing? What would that belief look like? And what would somebody who actually believes that way, truly understands their value and believes in their value and can stand confidently in it, how would they act? Would they get all worked up and anxious when somebody asks them to expand on what they're billing? Or would they stand confidently and say, oh yeah, this is exactly what it is? Would they hesitate in sending out their invoices? Or would they stand confidently in knowing that they have the value that's backing up why they're charging these fees, and then they can send out their invoices easily without worrying about somebody sending it back to them? Would they also not drag their feet on things? Would they just say, look, I'm just going to do this. This is my price and this is what it is, and not go back and forth questioning what would somebody be willing to pay? Would they think that's too much? And getting all caught up in their own head and their own mental chatter. When you can look at it from that perspective, then you have a much clearer idea of, well, this is what was going on. This is no longer serving me. And so now I'm going to step into and embody the individual, the type of individual that truly believes and owns their value. And you can do this in whatever way it is. It could be confidence. It could be trust. Maybe you have an issue with trust. Maybe you have a hard time where you feel like, no matter what you do, you feel like somebody always tends to let you down. Well, is there something going on here with a trust issue? Take a look at those patterns of behavior. Are you seeing something crop up that may present itself in different individuals or different scenarios? And if you take a close look and you can examine it, then you can say, wow, I can start to see that there is a core pattern that's going on here. And if there is a core pattern that you are witnessing, there is a core belief within yourself. So now we have to go back and identify that. Again, when we are conscious of it, awareness is key. Then we can start to change it. And we change it by first taking a look at what it is, and then what are our beliefs about it, and then thinking in terms of, What would somebody who actually did trust, what would somebody who is already a millionaire act like? What would somebody who truly believes in their value act like? Because then you start to get into that process as well. It comes from looking for those thoughts, those beliefs, and actions that have to be changed first so that you can start getting into that alignment and you can start moving forward into that and become a vibrational match. So it's changing sometimes the language as well around what we're doing. So maybe you look at it, for her example, it was, I was feeling like somebody's firing these things back to me and they're asking me to justify. Instead, now she's looking at it and thinking, oh, I see that perhaps I need to give a little bit more explanation and a detailed invoice when I send things, because that's what my clients are really asking for. I'm sure if I start to just give a little more details, it will make it much easier for my clients to then see that, and I'll have no issues of being paid on time. So it's changing those things again. Now, this is just one way of doing it, right? It's the thoughts that we're creating here because we're stepping into a new way of being. We're identifying the patterns of behavior, and then we're stepping into a new way of new way of thinking. But in addition to that new way of thinking, we have to back it with our action as well. The action is incredibly important, the physical action. So if you want a successful business, then you might be this visionary, and in the morning you might be thinking of all these ideas and even meditating on them and visualizing them. But instead of going the extra mile and committing to it, you find yourself taking longer breaks, or you sit down in the evening and you watch TV and just tune out. And you could be writing a couple of pages in that book, or maybe you could be putting the course together. So are you actually taking the physical steps that are backing the mental steps? They work in unison. It's always going to start mentally first. Everything starts in mind first, but they work in unison. And it's like, I think it was Joe Dispenza that said, neurons that fire together wire together. And so when you try to stop a behavior that you've been doing over and over again by identifying what that behavior is, but you don't take the physical action to create a new neural pathway and step into it and back up the new way of thinking, then it's very easy to start slipping back into that old pattern of behavior. So you have to get yourself out of that by actually physically doing something. And this is why I talk a lot about doing a pattern interrupt. And for some people, it can be wearing a rubber band on your hand. So sometimes it's a physical action that you will take that actually kind of jumpstarts your mind into thinking, whoa, I'm going back over here and I'm starting to feel like I have to justify my value, or I'm starting to feel like I can't trust anybody. Is that really a thought that serves me? And is that really a true thought? Is that really what's going on? And if not, snap that rubber band, give yourself a physical kind of pattern interrupt to get yourself back on track so that now you can get into action without this anxiety starting to try and drive the road and move you forward. Instead, you want to come from a place of being calm, self-assured, and in flow, because when you are in that space, then you become a vibrational match. Then it becomes much easier to create. You actually become a magnet to your desire. But you can't get there if you're in this anxious mode and you're trying to go, 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 and the early bird gets the worm, and I'm going to do this, and there's so much competition. Doesn't work that way. It's starting to understand who you are first, what the patterns are, and then taking a look at those on a daily basis. Because when you do that, you are so conscious of them, then you can change them and then take the physical action. And if you're not taking the physical action, do what I call a pattern interrupt. Kind of snap yourself into it and say, whoa, this thought isn't serving me. I'm going to change that now, and I'm going to redirect, and I'm going to be calm. And for example, I'm going to be calm and I'm going to choose to trust somebody. I'm going to choose to be happy and confident when I send this invoice. So it's changing all of those thoughts and then moving into the action of it as well. Now, the second step to actually matching that vibration of desire is, as I said, getting into the thought first and then getting into the action of it. But we really want to get into the feeling of it. And that's going to be so important, because what often happens is people say things like, and actually this came up, I think, in one of our other Pure Potential rooms. People often do these affirmations, and it's part of visualization and meditation as well. And they think, I have all the money I need. I am so happy that now that I'm a millionaire, I have this. But you may say those things, and yet if you haven't done the work on the inside to identify the patterns and start changing these things, then the feeling doesn't necessarily match it. So immediately when you say, I'm so happy and grateful now that I am a millionaire, that's one way of doing it, because you're softening it by saying now that. But your mind could be saying, what are you talking about? That's not true. You're not a millionaire. Remember, you have like $40 in your bank account. Remember, you've got a ton of bills due. Remember, your credit cards are at the max. So there's a complete disconnect. And so how do you actually ease that so that you can start getting into that vibrational match and getting into that frequency of it? I like to do a thing called playing the what if game. And to play this game, you basically just want to kind of relax your mind and your body. Just take a few minutes and just relax yourself so that you don't feel so anxious. I got to change this. I got to do this. I got to make this work. I got to get over here. I got to get on track over here. You want to ease into it. So by doing that, you're going to relax first, and then you start to just simply ask the questions, okay, what if you put that in front of what you desire? So let's say, for example, you want to make $250,000 this year. And you say, I am a successful entrepreneur earning $250,000. I am so happy and grateful now that I've reached my $250,000. But again, your mind's going to say, I don't really think so. And then there's the disconnect because you don't really value yourself and you're hesitant in sending out your invoices and all that, right? So now we want to go back and we just soften this and we say, what if I had $250,000 in my bank account right now? What if I landed a big client that brought me $250,000? What if I actually had the ability to buy the car I wanted right now? What if I was a millionaire? What if I was able to buy the house? What if I bought the actual house I want that's on my vision board? What would it feel like to absolutely be in that moment and living in there? What would that experience be like? Because again, anytime we put if in front of it, we start to ask the question. And whenever we ask a question, we start to open our mind up to the possibility. And we start to play in this field of unlimited potential, unlimited possibility, and pure abundance. And so you always want to think in terms of playing a game, because that's what life is, really, a game. It's fun. It's meant to be fun. So you look at it and say, what if I had that money in my account? What if I was able to take that trip? What would that be like? What would it feel like? What would I wear? Because that allows us now to get deeper into our visualization. That allows us to truly start connecting. And the only way you are going to create is to truly start becoming a vibrational match to that which you want. And the way to do that is to actually get into alignment with it. And you do that through emotion. We're emotional beings. And the energy of creation is through emotion. So you have to get into the emotion of what you want in order to get into the vibrational match of what you want. And you do that by identifying the patterns first, looking for those behaviors, becoming conscious of them, and then paying attention to those on a daily basis so that you can catch yourself. And if you need to do a pattern interrupt, you do a pattern interrupt and you say, that thought is no longer serving me. I'm going to redirect. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to take the physical action from a place of confidence and knowing in this new way of thinking. And then you play through the power of what if statements. Then you get into the emotion, and that emotion is the energy of creation. That what if statement allows your mind to then actually fill with the possibilities. So you don't have your conscious mind and your subconscious mind kind of battling it out and going, I want this, but no, you don't. You can't get it. You're not there. You're not this. Change that by softening it all. It makes it so much easier to step into the vibrational frequency of that which you truly, truly want. That's how you start to actually manifest your desires, align with your intentions, and start to actually bring forth that which you desire. You would not have a desire if you did not have the ability to create that desire. It is a gift from God that you have a desire in the first place. The word desire means from the Latin of the Father, of the sire, of the Father. It was given to you because you have the ability to create it, to live it, to be it. So the way that you do that is by going through this process, getting rid of those patterns and beliefs and old limiting behaviors, identifying them. You don't have to go back and sit on a couch and unpeel all the layers of the onion. You just have to identify it. Identify it, because when you're aware of it, you can change it. You quickly catch yourself in the moment. Pay attention to your words. They're so incredibly powerful. And then change your techniques around visualizing and I am statements by softening it, by playing a game with what if statements. What if? Because that allows you to play in the field of possibility. It allows you to connect to the emotion. And through emotion, we start to create. So that is how you will start to manifest your desires. And I so hope that you all start to put some of these tools and techniques into practice, because especially now when we are coming up on the last quarter of the year, you have some amazing opportunities to create what you truly want between now and the year's end. So if you set intentions at the beginning of this year and you're not realizing yet, take a look at some of these steps, start doing them, and let's figure it out. Figure out what's going on, what's really sitting in the way here, and do you actually want what you say you want?